brother, who was years older than me, bought me my first 3 records, which were Silk Degrees by Boz Scaggs, the Here and There live album by Elton John, which was phenomenal, and ELO's Greatest Hits. And I eventually became a fan of all of those artists. I've seen them a bunch of times, but it was that ELO record that really grabbed me initially.
I was moving on from Hermosa, destination Marina del Rey.
So I was inspired by music that was a bit before my time. Mid-70s artists, you know, the piano men like Billy Joel, Elton John, artists like Bruce Springsteen, Pink Floyd, Dire Straits. The real storytellers, you know. But I think the artist that most influenced me was ELO, and it was primarily because of those string arrangements which grabbed me, and they never stopped. And that's pretty much why we did the record this way. We wanted to try to recreate that same process with the strings.
If I'm gonna be honest, I gotta look myself in the mirror. There are so many things that...
Lyrics are really important to me in a song. I grew up listening to, you know, as I mentioned, Elton John. A big part of that is Bernie Taupin's lyrics. He was an amazing storyteller. Same with people like Mark Knopfler, Bruce Springsteen. So when it comes to writing lyrics, I tend to be really careful with them. I want to make sure that they say exactly what I'm looking to say.
Window seat and a whiskey, water reflecting on the edge of the knife.
Somebody in the industry a while back referred to my songs as sort of mini movies in that regard, and I thought that was a pretty accurate description.
I'm struggling to walk that straight and narrow. Afraid to rock in.
As far as the music goes, yeah, I'll take a chord structure that's fairly standard, and then I'll sit down at the keyboard and maybe try to expand on it a little bit with like adding sevenths and ninths here and there, just to try to make it a little bit more interesting.
I do believe I walked these fields once before, when galleons crossed the seas and crashed upon the shore. So valiant in the face of what the night would bring, we fall together for a king.
As far as the production goes, I tend to like really dense arrangements with a lot of different things going on, and I think it's one of the reasons why an orchestra is beneficial in that regard, because when you have an orchestra, you have a lot of different instrumentation that's still sort of cohesive. You can have a lot of different complementary parts going on, and it doesn't sound quite as cluttered because it is still somewhat uniform. So I think there's a real benefit in that regard.
Time will sail the rocket out beyond the sun.
A lot of times I'll just get a melody in my head. Usually when I'm driving in my car somewhere on an interstate late at night, I'll sing it into my phone while it's fresh. And if I can listen to that in a couple of days and it still strikes me as impactful the same way, I'll know that I've got something to work with, and then I'll generally turn it into a song later on. Sometimes I'll sit down at the keyboard and actually come up with a chord structure and build a melody around that. I don't do it quite as much that way, but sometimes I can. So it goes either way.
Growing up in Sheepshead Bay.
I was incredibly lucky to collaborate with the musicians and artists who were a part of this record. Matt Wallace is an incredibly accomplished producer who was 100% behind this vision that I had from day one. It was a very complex project. I couldn't have done it without him. Steve Turner, who is the string arranger, an amazing string arranger, he actually performed with ELO on their world tours prior to COVID. You know, because of that, he knew exactly what I was looking for in terms of those string arrangements.
It's an A C sharp. The second beat.
Happy with, although it's slightly difficult, happy with cellos.
He just did a phenomenal job with them, and I love listening to the arrangements on this record. The orchestra was a 21-piece section comprised of members of the Scotland National Symphony and BBC orchestras, amazing musicians. The fact that we were able to get the string parts recorded in 2 days was something I didn't think was possible. But we were able to do that because of those musicians and their dedication. And Cobus Frick and his engineering team and Adam Robinson, who conducted the orchestra, all phenomenal, phenomenal people. So I think the intent of this album really was to create a cohesive work of art. I remember being a kid and going to the stores and buying a record that you'd hear for the first time and really loving it and wanting to listen to it over and over again. There was something about records where you'd have the type of song that would open a record, the type of song that would close the first side, the type of song that would open the second side. Everything lent itself to being this work of art. That you don't necessarily see as much today, because we consume music via things like Spotify and YouTube, where everything is very song-based as opposed to album-based. And I miss the days of the albums, and hopefully if people choose to listen to it this way, they might get something out of it that's along those lines.
Somewhere within smoke and ruin, 6 floors beneath the plaza, they'll discover soon.